What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue our 2023 schedule preview and projected records for the 2023 college football season, and we continue them with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Here was the schedule last year for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The overall record for this team going 8-5 last year, so they had a pretty decent season. They went 7-5 in the regular season as well in 2022. And you look at who they played in the non-conference. They played Murray State, Houston out of the non-conference. They will play them this year on the schedule. We'll get to that in just a minute. And then they also played NC State on the road. So they didn't have too tough of a non-conference schedule. Obviously, NC State was their tough one there on the road, but they still lost that game. You look at who they played in the Big 12. They almost played every single Big 12 team last year. They beat Texas, basically. They beat West Virginia. They beat Kansas, Iowa State on the road, and then Oklahoma at home. So, yeah, all in all, Texas Tech had a pretty decent year. What do they look like in 2023? Will this be another decent season? Will they be contenders for the Big 12 championship? Let's get right to the schedule now for 2023. Here's the schedule for Texas Tech heading into 2023. And you look at who they'll play in the non-conference. They'll play Wyoming on the road, and then they'll play Oregon out of the non-conference. So they get Oregon out of the Pac-12 this year. What an interesting non-conference game that will be. And they'll also play Tarleton State. So the non-conference schedule, really not all too tough. I mean, they do have to play Oregon and Wyoming on the road, but, those are not... Wyoming and Tarleton State are not too tough non-conference games. Oregon will be a tough one, though, so that kind of makes the non-conference schedule a little bit tougher, but not really all that tough. At least it's not two Power 5 teams. But they do still have to play almost every single Big 12 team on the schedule. Let's go game by game now for this Texas Tech team. So they'll start this season off with their three non-conference games. They'll play Wyoming here on September the 2nd. Then they'll play that home game against Oregon. Good news is they'll get this game at home. But Oregon bringing back Bo Nix at quarterback. So, Oregon's got a lot of production coming back, so they really should be really good in the Pac-12 this year. And then after that, they'll play Tarleton State. So they'll play their three non-conference games just like I mentioned in the first weeks of September. Then they'll open up Big 12 play against West Virginia on the road. Could be a really tricky game. West Virginia wasn't that good last year, but you never know about West Virginia. Maybe they could surprise some people this year. Then they'll play Houston, a newcomer into the Big 12. I just mentioned Houston. They played them in the non-conference last year. This time they will play them in the Big 12. This time it will be on September the 30th. Then they'll play Baylor here on the road. An interesting game here. Baylor going to be, Baylor was a decent team last year. They could be really good this year, but I'm looking forward to this matchup as well. It will be a road game for Texas Tech. Then they'll play Kansas State here on October the 14th. Going to be a pretty good game here as well. A game that Texas Tech could probably potentially win, the defending Big 12 champions. Then they'll play on the road at BYU, one of those newcomers in the Big 12 as well. This will be on October the 21st. Then they'll play on a Thursday night here against TCU on November the 2nd. The November schedule kind of a little bit tough for Texas Tech. They have to play TCU here on November the 2nd. Then they'll play Kansas here on the road. Kind of like a trap game, I believe, for Texas Tech. This one will be a road game. Kansas was a really good team last year, and they returned a lot of production from last year coming back this season. And then they'll play UCF, another one of those newcomers into the Big 12 this year. And then they'll end things out here on a Friday with Texas here on the road. And it will be the last time that they will play in the regular season. Of course, Texas going to the SEC next year is going to be huge. So Texas Tech will play them on the road this year. But that's the schedule for Texas Tech. All in all, not a tough schedule for this Texas Tech team. They do have some tough road games with Baylor. Obviously, Texas on there. And Kansas and BYU, and, those are tough ones on the road as well. But they still have to play that non-conference game against Oregon. So with Oregon on the schedule, it makes it a little bit tougher, but not all that tough. Not brutal of a schedule for Texas Tech. Let's now get to the projected record here for this Texas Tech team. This is a scale I use for my projections. If it's a 1% game, these are games where Texas Tech has no chance of winning in, so they'll stay in the red. 20% games, there'll be about a couple touchdowns of an underdog in the orange. 40% in the yellow, these are games where Texas Tech has going to be an underdog in, a heavy underdog. They have a really good shot to win him probably in. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white, games where they can go either way. The 60% games in the purple. These are games where Texas Tech's going to be favored by about a touchdown. 80% games in the blue. These are games where Texas Tech's going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then 90% games. These are games where Texas Tech's going to be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. We always start with the green games here on these projections, and I think you got 2 of those on the schedule here to begin their projection. It's Wyoming on the road and then Tarleton State here at home. I think these are your 2 easy wins here on this schedule if you're Texas Tech. I really think they should take care of business. I think Wyoming should be a blue game. It's on the road, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the green just because of where Texas Tech was last year. This is also just based off of where the teams were last year, but Wyoming, they're a group of 5 team. I really don't study the group of 5 that much, but I'm looking forward to doing that a lot more years to come. Tarleton State, they should really take care of business that game on September the 16th, so I think you got your 2 easy wins here in the green. I don't have any blue games for Texas Tech just because it makes the schedule's a little bit tougher to put it in a blue game. But we got some purple games on this schedule in the 60% games where Texas Tech will be favored by about a touchdown. And that's 3 of them on the schedule. We got West Virginia on the road, Houston and UCF both at home. Houston and UCF are both the newcomers in the Big 12. We just don't know how good they're going to be when they enter the Big 12. Are they going to be decent teams? Are they going to be like bad teams? But this is just based off of where they were last year. They weren't in the Big 12 just yet, and I think Texas Tech will be about a touchdown favorites in both of those newcomer games. And then West Virginia on the road, they weren't good last year, but this is a road game. I have to put it in the purple. West Virginia could be a tough place to play for Texas Tech. Plus, it's in September. Teams don't get better by the time they get into the month of October. So I think all these games, though, in the green and the purple, I think these are all games where Texas Tech will be favored in. Let's go to the underdog games now. I don't have any red or orange games on here, but I do got some yellow games in the 40% games. These are games where Texas Tech's going to be an underdog and a heavy underdog by about a touchdown. And I think you got 2 of those on the schedule. It's Oregon at home and then Kansas State, the Big 12 champion from last year. Oregon, obviously, out of the non-conference is a really tough one. I probably would have put this one in the 50-50 games, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the yellow. Oregon was a pretty good team last year, and I got to put that one. And with the production they have coming back, it's going to be really tough to call, but it could switch to a 50-50 game by the time we do those predictions in the month of May. Same thing with Kansas State. They won it all last year in the Big 12, so I'm going to have to put this one in the yellow, but it could switch by the time we get into those predictions in the month of May, and I may count this one as a win for them. But as of right now, I'm going to put it in the yellow, and I think these are your 2 underdog games here if you're Texas Tech. And the rest of the games here on the schedule, they got a bunch of 50-50 games. Baylor on the road, BYU on the road, Kansas on the road, and Texas on the road. And the only home game they have here in the 50-50 game is TCU. TCU, I thought about putting that one in the yellow just because they made the Big 12, but it's a really tough one to call. I think this will be a back-and-forth game perhaps, but we don't really know how the game will go down until we get into the later part of the offseason. But Baylor, BYU, those are tough road games there. BYU, the newcomer in the Big 12, that's why I got to put in the white because it is on the road. Kansas and Texas were really good teams last year, so I got to put those games in the white. But I think all these games can go either way. I think these are your 50-50 games for Texas Tech, and I think these are games where they could potentially win in. So how many games do I see them winning at least out of those 50-50 games? So I see them winning maybe 3 of those games, maybe 2 of those games, but maybe only they can win that one game, and that's TCU at home, because they still have to play Baylor, BYU, Kansas on the road, and also Texas on the road. So they can pretty much lose all of those road games, but don't sleep on them purple games. They could probably lose those 2 as well. But, they could also beat Oregon at home and also Kansas State. So I think Texas Tech has a really good shot. Maybe to win some of these games on the schedule, but maybe they won't beat, Oregon on the schedule. You never know. But as of right now, this is how it plays out. Like I said, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on the schedule. Let's get to the projected record now for this Texas Tech team. So if you count the white games and also the purple games and green games that they're favored in and also the underdog games in the yellow, you get an overall projected record for this Texas Tech team at 6-6 for 2023. So 6-6, is the projection here for Texas Tech. I think best case scenario would be probably 7-5. Worst case scenario, I think, would be 5-7 or 4-8. If they go 4-8 or 5-7, that would kind of be a step back for them. You know, they went 8-5 last year. I'm kind of expecting, though, Texas Tech to be a really decent team. Maybe like not a quality team, but like a decent team this year. But as of right now, that's the overall projected record, how it stands out for Texas Tech. Let me guys know what you think about this Texas Tech team down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.